Oh my God, it's happening.
Hey.
Oh my God, it's happening.
Well, I guess I may be a spiritual guru, but I sure am a technological idiot.
You are perfect in every single way. Everybody, please send up all the hearts that you have for the greatest Iyanla Vanzant. Just let her know how much you love her, because I'm about to turn off. I'm going to turn off the comments so that we can see her beautiful face. So this is your chance to just like shout. See all those hearts, Iyanla, up in the corner? That's all people loving on you right now.
Thank you.
It's just a world of love.
Grand rising to everybody.
Hi, beloved.
How are you, my beloveds?
Oh, we're so much better now that you're here. Thank you for coming on the Onward Book Club. Thank you. It's so wonderful to see your face.
Yeah,
and
you too. It's been too long.
It has been too long. I mean,
I didn't even put on any makeup. I just came as I am.
I'm going to show you. I actually have a new trick so that I don't have to wear makeup. I just wear glasses that are so big that nobody even notices that I have a face. And then
well, you know what? I'm going to change.
All they see are the glasses.
I'm going to change mine so I have a little color on my face. How's that?
Okay, here we go. Okay, now we're in business. Everybody, that's a free tip right there on how to change your look in 2 seconds. Iyanla, we're here today to talk about your extraordinary New York Times bestselling, heartbreaking, spirit-affirming 2010 memoir of devastating loss and resilience and resourcefulness and survival, and better than survival, thrival. But I want to begin before we get into the book, and I have about 10 pages of questions for you about the book.
Okay.
But I want to tell everybody how we met, and I want to start the way that you used to start when I saw you on stage. So Iyanla and I met on Oprah Winfrey's speaking tour several years ago. Oh my God.
Live Your Best Life.
Live Your Best Life speaking tour.
Right.
I think it was The Life You Want. Live Your Best Life, Life You Want. But anyway, it was like a 7 or 8 city stadium tour that they had in basketball stadiums all over the country, 20,000 people, nothing intimidating whatsoever about being a speaker and that. And you got on, I watched you give your speech every single night with my heart in my throat, because you would come out on stage and you would do something I've never seen anybody do before. You would bring silence into the stadium. So the first thing you would do is you would ask everybody to be silent. You would say, shut your brains, meaning shut your eyeballs. And you would have us, 20,000 strangers, take each other by the hand.
Yeah.
And then you would stand there in silence while we all held hands. And I found out later from talking to you what you were actually doing in that moment of silence. What you were doing was calling down spirit to tell you what to say, because you had nothing prepared. This is who you are. You walked out on a stage with 20,000 people, with Oprah Winfrey sitting in the front row, and you put your life in the hands of the God of your understanding. And you also told me you were feeling the souls and the spirits of the 20,000 people in that room to decide what they needed to hear that day.
Yeah.
And I watched, because every night it was a different speech and every night it was perfect. And so I wanted to see if we could start. Can you do that online? Can we start?
Absolutely.
Can we call in spirit and actually kind of collect ourselves here for a moment? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I want to invite everybody to yawn. Just yawn. Yeah, and then stretch your body. Stretch out your arms, stretch out your hands, your legs, your knees, wherever you are. And then I want you to just make contact with yourself. Your face, your neck, your throat, your arms, almost like giving yourself a hug, if you will. Nice and gentle. And now yawn again. Oh, and you don't even have to cover your mouth. And and then stretch. Come on, stretch. Yeah. And now make contact. Make contact. Yeah, the belly is always a good place to make contact. And then just take a breath. and let it out. Take another breath and let it out. Yeah. And here we are.
Mm. Here we are.
Here we are. And here we go.
And here we go. Okay, that did it. That actually brought me here. So thank you. And Iyanla, this book, I've read so many of your books, and so much of your work has influenced my life and my understanding of my soul's journey. I see you as a great spiritual leader and also a great writer, which I think you sometimes don't get enough credit for. A really, really great writer. And this is a book that you wrote that is so harrowing and so vulnerable and so incredibly honest about the death of your daughter at an untimely, heartbreakingly young age from a rare colon cancer, your daughter Jamia. And you begin the book with a piece of writing that is as beautiful and heartbreaking as anything I've ever read, describing in sort of minute by minute detail the last day of her life. And it ends with her death, and it's Christmas Day. And you write, I don't even know if I can read it. I don't know how you wrote it. I don't know how you wrote it, but you wrote, "My daughter Jamia was not the only one who died that morning. My family of origin died. My marriage, already in its coffin, died for good. My ministry, which had been the foundation of my relationship to God, was counted among the fatalities too. My career, my personal vision, my life's purpose as I had come to know it, came to an abrupt end. Most important of all, when my best friend, my middle child, took her last breath, my sense of self died with her. I was a woman whose dance card was suddenly filled with death, and whose heart had shattered into a million pieces." Tell us about that moment in your life, and also about choosing to begin the book from that spot of absolute brokenness, where everything that you had based your life upon had been taken away.
Wow. That's a lot. You know, first I want to say that as a mother, which is what I am at the core and essence of my being, you know, Iyanla means great mother. And so as a mother, when you lose a child, it changes who you are. Changes who you are at the core. It doesn't matter that you got other children, but mommy is supposed to be able to fix everything. And here I am saving the world, you know, strangers, and I can't save my child. So who I was and what I knew was in that moment just shattered. And so she died on Christmas Day. We buried her on the 30th of December. When you've been dispossessed of your identity, you're empty, you're void. And that's a frightening thing to be. And so for almost 3 years, because I didn't write that book until 4 years after Jamia passed, because I couldn't go back to that moment. I couldn't go back there. It was just too much. But as spirit continued to harass me,
It won't let you go, will it?
no, a spiritual harassment, an assault. It was an aggravated assault by the Holy Spirit. I had to go back to that day, that moment, that time, and walk through it minute by minute by minute by minute, because I could only do a minute at a time. And then I was guided, instructed, directed to write down each minute. It took me a year.
Wow.
It took
And
me a
what was
year.
can I ask you, writer to writer, and also, I also want to update you. A lot has changed in my life since I last saw you, and I read this book when it came out. Reading it again now has a very different meaning to me, because in that time I lost the most important person in my own life, and now I'm 3.5 years post that, and first of all, I'm astonished by the way that grief comes in waves. I'm
Yes.
in a grief wave now, three
Yeah.
and a half years later. It's why I haven't been on Instagram or in social media in 6 months. I've been, taking care of myself in this delayed, it has, I almost feel like your psyche can't take it all at once.
No, you can't.
Because if you felt it all in one moment, you wouldn't be able to survive. And so it's
No.
almost like grief gets siphoned to you in the bits and pieces as maybe spirit decides that your soul is ready. Like, okay, you're ready for another wave of it now, or you're ready for another wave of it now. Have you had that experience as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jameer passed in 2003. This is 2021. And the critical mass of her illness started around the week before Thanksgiving. Every year, no matter what I'm doing in that week, it just, it used to floor me, and now it just sits me down. What are we talking, 17, 18 years later? But yeah, it comes in waves. And I don't know if it's that spirit thinks your soul can handle it as much as it is your soul informs spirit. Okay, let me go through this now. Okay. Let me take this on now, because there's a lesson in it. There's a growth in it. There's an expansion in it. So each wave that comes takes you deeper into whatever it is that you need. And it must have been 3 or 4 years ago. No, it's been about 5 years ago. Spirit said to me, your pain must not dispossess your purpose.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Your pain must not dismiss, deny, dispossess, derail your purpose. Keep moving. So that's what I had to do. And I think on top of the loss of Jameer, when she passed, her daughter was 9. And I raised her daughter and did everything that Jameer and I had always talked about. Sent her to private girls' school and sent her off to college and everything. And she came home from college, and I brought her home. We had a little dinner. The next day she went to her father's house. That was in May of 2016. And I haven't seen her since.
Wow.
So on top of losing Jameer, I've now lost connection to her daughter. I couldn't tell you why. I cannot tell you why. So it's not just because she was Jameer's daughter, but from 9 to 18, I raised her. She's always been in my life. So that was just like, oh, really? Really, people? You really?
Okay. I want to talk about this really because, there's an expression that the Zen Buddhists say that I heard, which is about what is necessary sometimes for a true spiritual awakening. And it says, first they pull the rug out from under your feet. Then they pull the floor out from under the rug. Then they pull the ground out from under the floor. Now you're getting somewhere. Now you're getting somewhere as a spiritual being. And you write in this book about your belief that the soul chooses exactly the journey that it's going to be having in life. And I'm wondering if we could skip ahead a little bit to the beautiful section you have about the Sunday brunch in heaven, where the souls to become all gather and they choose the journey that they're going to have in life. And I want to let you share that story with everybody. And then I want to break it down a little bit for people who feel, and I know many people do, and certainly the year 2020 was a year when like the ground was pulled out from everybody underneath. No matter what personal traumas you were going through, there was also this additional, like for the first time, I think in human history, a global trauma experienced by every single human on earth. And I don't think we've ever had anything at that level, which is another reason why I wanted to bring you on to discuss grief and trauma and healing and the soul's journey and how we are to make sense of these times in life where it feels like it's raining hammers and there's no ground under your feet and it's loss after loss after loss. So let's start with the Sunday brunch in heaven, and then give us a little bit of your philosophy and how your spirit understands this, what we're called to in this life, often through suffering.
Well, every Sunday morning,
It's story time with Iyanla Vanzant.
Every Sunday morning, God offers to the souls becoming human a jazz brunch. A jazz brunch with the best hors d'oeuvres you could ever think of in the world. And all souls go to the brunch, knowing that at some point they are going to get a life assignment for being human. They go and they participate and they eat the shrimp, big shrimp, the real colossal kind, not the little, and there's all kind of sauces and there's little sandwiches and there's drinks and it's just wonderful. And somewhere, in the middle of the lunch, the creator, the chief architect of life comes up. Now, the souls know that when the creator has an important life assignment for a soul becoming, that he's going to look in the front row. So those souls that are ready to be born, are ready to become human, to be human, they sit in the front row over to the side so that they can catch a view of the creator. And the creator comes and he sits before the souls and he says, I have a life assignment for you. And in this life assignment, you're going to be the child of Festus and Lulabelle. Now, Festus is a very aggressive closet alcoholic. And Lulabelle grew up with a father who was a closet alcoholic, kind of violent. So she's very quiet and passive. And you'll be born to them and you will have to learn about forgiveness. And you'll have to learn about compassion. Is there anybody here that wants to take this assignment? And because all the souls want to please the creator, the ones who've had many experiences, they raise their hand. Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it. And he says, thank you. And then that soul goes off. And then the creator will give another assignment. Like maybe you'll be born to Bridget and Gilbert, and Gilbert has a mental illness and he'll leave when you're around 3 and you'll have to grow up, and maybe you'll be born to Monica and Morris, and you'll be in this country or that country, you'll be this race or that race, and this is what you'll have to learn. And those souls who are becoming human, they raise their hand and they take on those life assignments. And some souls don't hear anything of interest, so they wait till the next brunch and more hors d'oeuvres. Well, once you take your assignments, you go lay down, because of course Morris and Monica or Festus and Lulabelle, they're going to be doing the wild thing that evening, and you've got to be in position to win the race among the sperms and the eggs. So you go lay down, and the creator comes into the room and gently showers you with love and whispers into your ear what your purpose and your assignment are. Then they get to doing the wild thing, and you beat out all the sperm and the egg, and boop, there you are. 9 months later, you're born into the world, and they snatch you out, slap you on your butt, and you forget everything. You forget the assignment, you forget the purpose, you forget who you are, you forget the creator's instructions. And so you go through life wondering, why is my daddy a drunk? Why is my mother mentally ill? Why is my father not here? Why is my mother my father? Why is this? Because you've forgotten. As a human being who was a soul becoming, your job through every experience is to remember what the creator whispered in your ear on that night when Festus and Lulabelle was doing the wild thing.
Yeah.
So what I know and what I've learned and what I believe is that we all come here knowing. The soul knows. It knows. And everyone comes here with a spiritual curriculum.
Yeah.
Some of us are taking algebra, some are taking calculus, depending upon what your soul agreed to at that brunch. And every experience is a divine setup to give you the opportunity to recall, remember, reconnect, recognize, that means bring to cognition, what it is that you came here to learn, not to do, to learn, not to be. I came here to learn certain things. So Sahara, my mother, died when I was 2. Horace, my father, was a gambling womanizer. Rissy, my grandmother who raised me, was a violent, broken Native American who beat the living shit out of me every time she had an opportunity because there was nobody else around for her to take her anger out on. And I couldn't remember. I didn't realize what my lesson was, what I was here to learn. So it took a while, but I got it. My number one lesson was freedom and forgiveness. Those were my lessons. They were complicated by the fact that everybody forgot to tell me that my mother was dead. So they raised me thinking, allowing me to believe that one woman was my mother who wasn't. And I found out the truth when I was 30. So my new lesson became truth.
And are these, and by my count, you were raised in 5 different homes.
5, yeah.
Each with its own particular nightmare of abuse, neglect, and toxic masculinity, deep oppression, not to mention what was going on in the cultural world outside of your home. So it wasn't like you stepped out of any one of those 5 homes and you walked into a world where everything was like great and fair for for a young poor Black girl growing up in the, it was like it was just like
Black Native American. Black Native American.
I mean,
okay.
And female.
Yeah.
And poor. So so you took the full assignment.
The hors d'oeuvres were just worth the trip, I'm telling you. I must have ate a lot of shrimp that day. And I must have drank too much of the free champagne.
well, what you said, in the book, you said that at that jazz brunch, one of the things that's given to you, in addition to the assignment, are a set of guiding principles.
Yes.
That will take you through this journey safely.
Yes.
And that it sounds to me like that what you're saying is that even though childhood feels like a completely non-consensual event, I think everybody's childhood feels like a non-consensual event. You come online into consciousness in the middle of a drama that started generations before you were born. All the actors are performing their roles and you're like, wait, who am I? And children are vulnerable, but they're not powerless.
Right.
So they start to create strategies we all started to create strategies to survive this drama that we had all been dropped into, that to us felt like, yes, literally, what the fuck am I doing here in this story? And what do I have to do to keep these people from killing me? What do I have to do to survive? What do I have to do to gain validation, attention, affection? What do I have to do to survive in this world? But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that the journey of the soul is to remember piece by piece, to reflect the title of the book. And if you're just joining us, we're talking to Iyanla Vanzant, author of Peace from Broken Pieces, to find and relearn and re-know the principles that you were given.
Remember.
To remember.
Remember. Put yourself back together with those things.
And what was the first principle that you feel like you remembered?
The first principle I think that I remembered was integrity. I think it was integrity. To do the right thing even when nobody was looking. Because I did a lot of bad things. Integrity for me.
Yeah.
And then as I matured, I came to find out that it was the inner integrity more than the outer integrity.
Yeah.
Where my thinking, my feeling, my speaking, my doing were all congruent.
Right.
Yeah. Because in those 5 homes, I always had to earn my way. I had to be grateful that somebody took me in. So I was never authentic. Maybe authenticity was the first. No, it was integrity. Integrity took me to authenticity.
Right.
But authenticity was another one. Because when you don't know who you are, it's hard to be authentic. I didn't know who my mother was.
Right.
Give me a break. So authenticity was another thing that I had to learn.
Sorry. Keep going.
Go ahead.
Don't interrupt.
I'm just trying to keep the dogs from barking.
We don't mind. We don't mind dogs. Hi, who's this?
Peace. This is Peace.
What? Tell him or her that to live up to his or their name.
Oh, she is the noisiest one, I'm telling you.
Sometimes peace only comes to us after a lot of disturbance, Iyanla. It's
That's
a kind
right.
of a good operative metaphor for this
Yeah.
conversation. You wrote, my greatest lesson was the discovery that I held the key to my freedom in the center of my being.
Yes.
The key was spirit. No
Yes.
pathology is stronger than your spirit.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's one sentence that I've ever read of you that encapsulates everything that you are, it is no pathology is stronger than your spirit.
Yeah.
And yet it takes a really long time for a person to come into spiritual being. And you write about that so beautifully in this book. It's a memoir of spiritual becoming in addition to a story of grief. You say of your younger life, the spiritual bones of my life were ill-formed and far from solid. I loved God, but I didn't really know God. Not then, not yet. I really responded to that line because I feel too, only recently have I realized that I'm somebody who has always felt like I knew God. Not that I knew God, that I felt God. I definitely believed in God. I've always loved God, but I have never trusted God.
Why would you?
Never, because life is so scary and the world
Right.
is so scary, and people who you love can be taken away, and suddenly, everything, there's no ground beneath your feet again. So I felt that in you. I felt a similarity of this sense of a long life of loving God, praying to God, believing in God. But what does it actually take to, and I feel like I'm only just beginning at the age of 51 to actually trust.
Yeah.
Because trusting means that I have to let go of a level of control
Yeah.
that I have been thus far very unwilling to relinquish. Nothing has ever been taken away from me that didn't have claw marks in it. So I want to talk about how you formed those spiritual bones and what your relationship now is with not just loving spirit and feeling it, but trusting.
Well, the first step was to identify the bones that were broken.
Mm.
Because those bones that are broken by your human family are the bones that are broken in your relationship with God. My father was distant, unavailable, inaccessible, and when he was around was violent. So, because the universe doesn't recognize adjectives, when
Right.
I would say my father, I was saying the same thing about the father.
Okay.
And then for me, mother was absent. Mother was false. Mother was a lie. So when I found out that my mother was dead and that the woman who I thought was my mother really wasn't my mother, my relationship with the feminine aspect of God, that bone was broken. And I had to build that relationship. So the first step in really learning to try to know God is understanding God's nature. And that then helps you interpret your experiences differently. So, for example, one of the natures of God is truth. Well, my whole life, my first 30 years was a lie. So now how do I build a relationship with truth? Another of God's characteristics, the qualities of God, is love. Well, my love was brutal and abusive and disjointed and dysfunctional. So now how do I repair that bone?
Mm.
So it took me 12 years of really just, my goal was to have God impregnate me with its being. Not what I had learned in church, not what I saw my grandmother do, not what the world said. I had to be impregnated with a new experience of God. And I'm still human. So I still have eyes and nose and ears and things, and I still had to learn how to trust. And there are moments, even now, where I say, okay, all right, y'all, this is like I need some help. Really? So, And that's normal. Now, here's the distinction. Those are moments. They're not weeks or months or years anymore.
Right.
They're moments.
Right.
And they're allowed. They are allowed. You know, I'm a student of life. And, you know, one of my foundational books in life, on this hand is the Bible, and on this hand is A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And for me, they just line up so much. And out of the Bible, I hold on to Proverbs. Lean not on your own understanding. That's it. I don't have nothing else out the Bible I can do. Iyanla, don't lean on your understanding, because you human, girl, you gonna mess this up. Lean not on your own understanding. Honor God in all thy ways, and he will direct your path. I stay there. And then from the Course in Miracles, I stay with all things are lessons that God would have you learn. Don't lean on your own understanding. But this is a lesson that you got to learn. And I don't care what it is. I'm between those two things, you know. And that's how I learned how to trust. This is a lesson. I don't like it. I really think you're pushing me, you know, beyond where I need to be right now, God. You know, because I'm a Black woman. I'm going to tell God how to do his job. Because, you know, he need my help.
I always say it's God's. I grant that it's God's universe. I will grant that, but clearly it's my job to manage it.
Yeah, right. You know, so I'm like,
or
really, God?
Co-manage.
Right, right.
You know, one thing that I also related to in the book is at the beginning of the book, you know, your life falls apart after Jamia dies, and there's a point at which you sort of say, I didn't ever think I was going to have to do this again. Right. You know, like you had come from a place of such brokenness, and then you had built this life, you had built this empire, you had become a best-selling author, you sold out stadiums, you had a TV show, you know, you had a family that was working, you know, all of this was created, and then it's like, whoop, now we're going to just like knock over the table that's got the puzzle finished on it, and you're not even gonna be able to find the pieces once this table's been knocked over. Like, it's going to be a whole different puzzle when it comes back together. And you know, I think that's one of the things that is so jarring about life in these meat suits as a soul, is that just when you sort of think you got it figured out, right? And figured out is always the dangerous word, because that's leaning on my own understanding.
Yes.
You know, right there.
Yeah.
And you know, I really related to you saying, like, we're here again, you know, yeah. broken again. Wow. And to me, it just feels like, well, look, life school, Earth School is in session. You signed up for the full curriculum. And I always tell people that, you know, my life after my second divorce, I was like, my life didn't end on the last page of Eat, Pray, Love, y'all.
Right.
You know, like, I was 34 years old when I wrote that last page of Eat, Pray, Love. I'm 51 now. There's been a lot of school between here and there, and a lot of things have happened. And the scary thing is, we'll probably continue to, you know, and where do you find the spiritual stamina to continue to show up for school with an open heart? To continue to live in agreement with the human incarnation that you selected at the jazz brunch when everything was so great and the shrimp were so good. When the ground keeps, you know, it's like, okay, Steen, now flip it, try again, flip it, try again. That, do you feel that you can ever say that you get good at it, or is that a sort of hubris human thing to say?
Well, one of the things that I notice is I take copious notes, you know. So when stuff comes up, I say, okay, I've seen this before. How am I going to handle it this time?
Right.
How am I going to handle it this time? And I look at what I did last time, you know, and I really try to work it quicker, you know. I really try to work it quicker. I don't stay as angry as long, or as depressed as long, or as whatever, because you burn your heart out doing that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to take notes, and you have to, willingness, that's a principle. You got to be willing. I don't understand this, but you've got to be willing. And the other thing that I realized, like when you were saying how I had built all of this up from so much and it fell apart again, because I built it on a shaky foundation. My foundation was not solid. I knew what to do. I didn't know how to be.
Okay, wow. Can you
Okay.
break that down? Is that a little bit what you're talking about the great personal lie?
Yes.
That you built
Yeah.
it on a
Yeah. Which
misunderstanding
was
of
that
what
I
you were.
was okay and I
Yeah.
wasn't. For example, after, my 40-year relationship, my marriage fell apart and I was broke. I had to turn my house back over to the bank and I didn't have any place to live. And my contract was gone. My publisher sued me for the advance that I had spent taking care of Jamia. And I'm like, holy, jumping Jesus, what in the world is this? But when I sat down and didn't lean on my own understanding of this is happening to me, and I got clear about this is happening through me, what am I cleaning up? I realized that I stayed in that relationship because it was familiar. I was done with that relationship a long time. But to maintain appearances, I stayed in it. I was out of integrity. I wasn't being authentic. When I realized that this beautiful, beautiful house that I bought and lived in that I thought I loved wasn't really about me creating a home for myself. It was about me having the trappings of being successful. And so when they took it away, I was like, okay, who are you without this house? Okay. And then when I ended up with nowhere to live and I'm driving around in my car that Jamia gave me with all my belongings in black plastic bags, in that moment I said, I will trust in you always. God, I will trust in you. And that day, somebody called me and said, here's a house. I went and got it. I didn't have the money. The next day, somebody I didn't know called my office and said, I want to pay a tithe to Iyanla, but I want it to be anonymous. And they sent a check for the exact amount that I needed to get into the house. Okay. So
Yeah.
you got to take notes. You got to do it better, because it wouldn't have helped me to drive around in my car feeling bad because I didn't have nowhere to live. I had to know, I don't know where it is going to be. If it's going to be a hut in the park with the squirrels, God is going to provide it right here, right now. Okay, I know that's going to happen. And it did. So take notes, pay attention. Don't buy real estate in the pain. And the other thing that I know now, and I signed up for this at the brunch. For whatever reason, I must have, like I said, had too much champagne. Anything I write about, I have to live so that I can tell the truth about how to get out of it.
Yes.
I wish I had had a more vivid imagination and just could write about the shit because I know it. But no, I got to live. I got to live the death and the grief and the broken relationship and the no money and the buta. Why? So now I've learned that as I go through and I see stuff coming, I say, God, bring it with elegant grace and ease. Bring it with elegant grace and ease. It can come. I'm a walk with it, but bring it with elegant grace and ease, because I'm old now.
Be a little gentle on me.
I'm old. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And now I also know that very often I will initiate my own lessons. I will say,
So
okay,
tell me what
God,
that means.
all right. So let me see if I can find an example. So after spending 40 years in and out of a relationship with one man, I got into a really wonderful relationship with a really wonderful man. He was really wonderful. 14 years we were together and never had an argument, never had a fight. And around year 11, I knew something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And over time, it just came to me. Beautiful, beautiful man, beautiful soul, beautiful spirit, who wasn't loving me the way I wanted to be loved. He just wasn't. He just couldn't. And there was a little bit of unwillingness. And once I recognized that, I said, I'm either going to stay in this and make myself okay with it, or I'm going to end it. Well, I had never ended a relationship. Everybody had always left me. So I said, okay, God, I don't know what I'm learning here, but I'm not choosing this. Tell me what to do. And God said, you can't leave until you can stay. What does that mean?
Wow. Okay. I feel like I get, okay.
What does that mean? I can't leave until I can stay, until you're
No
not
running
mad
away.
at him,
Yeah.
until you're not blaming him, until you're not upset with him, until you just see him and choose. Until you can do that, you can't leave. You'll be back and forth, back and forth.
Wow.
Took me 3 years.
Wow.
And then one day I said to him, it was one little thing. I'll tell you this real quick. He liked oatmeal raisin cookies. I like chocolate chip with nuts. Whenever I went to the store, I would buy a pack of chocolate chip with nuts and a pack of oatmeal raisins. If they were on sale, I'd buy 2. And so one day he went to the store and he bought oatmeal raisin and no chocolate chip. And he came home and he put the cookies out. And I said, well, where's my cookies? Oh, what do you mean? Oh, I said, you didn't buy me no cookies? I never go to the store, don't buy you no cookies. You didn't buy me no cookies? Done. Just like that. A week later, I said, I love you, but this is done. I'm out.
Wow.
Just like that. I wasn't mad. I wasn't upset.
Yep.
I wasn't. Yep. I was just done. I was done. I knew I was done, and I wasn't willing to be out of integrity or inauthentic and try to make it work.
Yeah.
So it took him a year to move out. He moved out, and a year later he died.
Mm.
He died January 12th, 2020, in the midst of he didn't die from COVID, but he moved out February 2019, and he died January 2020.
Wow.
So I said, wow, I don't know what God was saving me for, you know?
Wow.
I just thought it was about the cookies. So my point is, you just never know. You got to walk it all the way out. You have to walk it all the way out and pay attention
not reactive.
Along the way.
Like what you did wasn't reactive. It was like
I couldn't leave until I could stay.
I think sanity in a way is the restoration of choice, the end of reaction and the beginning of decisions. You know, and you write about in the book, you say you were 30 before you realized you were insane. Yes. And you were 50 before you became sane. And you spent those 20 years trying to figure out how to become sane. I get that as well. I get that absolutely as well. It takes a really long time because there's so much to unlearn, you know, and I think that so much of, there's a lot of learning, but there's also a lot of unlearning, a lot of deconstructing of the messaging. And that brings me to a topic I want to discuss with you about intergenerational trauma. I think what today is being called epigenetics, the inherited trauma passed down generation to generation, literally in the DNA. And your writing, especially so movingly in this book, there's a through line in this book about a story that just gets told again and again and again about women capitulating to men, even to the point of death. There's a moment in the book where you write about a profound spiritual vision you once had, where you were given the names of 17 generations of women who had been beaten and abused by men before you. You write, without even knowing it, my mother taught me how to love a man. It was self-denying, self-abasing. And this goes back generations until you said you became addicted to pain, debilitating, devastating emotional pain. And you also write about this one of the most heartbreaking moments in the book, your father beating you as a child, while your stepmother, Net, who was the only woman, the only person who ever actually gave you love, not interfering, not rescuing you, and not only not rescuing you, but saying to you afterwards, as you were beaten so badly that neighbors had called the police, saying to you, what did you do to make him so mad? Why can't you ever do what you were told? And what shattered my heart reading that was that I knew this woman loved you. Yeah. You knew this woman loved you. And I actually believe in that moment, she was trying to convey survival skills to you, to say, You have to learn how to not make men angry. You
That's right.
have to learn how to give men it's the only way that you can be safe in the world. And so her scolding of you was actually a very demented, but I think well-intentioned lesson of how can I help this girl not get beaten again?
Right.
She's got to learn to never, and then you wrote later in the book, men will hurt you. These are the lessons you learned. Men will hurt you, and when they do, you must make excuses for them. Men will abandon you, but you must not say a word about it to anyone. If you do everything that men want, need, and ask of you, and if you submit yourself to them for their pleasure, and you just act like everything is okay, maybe they will stay. Maybe. My relationship history is not that different, Iyanla. Just saying, I think many of us can relate to that. And the great unlearning of women to unlearn that in a world where you're taught that everything about men is precious. Everything they want, everything they feel, everything they care about, every cookie flavor that they desire, everything about them is precious and nothing about you is.
Yeah.
And tell me about the decades-long unlearning of that in your life and what you see now at this moment in the world as you teach and as you minister to broken men and broken women.
We see it playing out in the world right now. Everybody placating to a man and what he wants. And you call it what you want to call it. You can call it politics or Republicans or whatever, but we see it right now playing out in the world. But what I learned, Jamia helped me with that because it was when she passed away that I was told that she took away 17 generations of violence and abuse against women so that I wouldn't have to do it because my job was in the world. And what I have learned, and I recently did a class on releasing sexual abuse trauma, but it was really all trauma. It's not even so much what happened as it is the energy of what happened. I carried a pathology of 17 generations, and it was an energy. And the physical experiences and learnings were one thing, but I couldn't get through them until I could release the energy of it. The energy is what motivated me, because when I felt that twitch in my body of he's going to be mad, or I need to do this, or I couldn't do that, or I don't say nothing about the cookies, when I felt that energy, I would go to the addictive or the habitual behavior. But once I cleared up that energy, once I released that energy, I grew lady balls. You got to have lady balls. I grew lady balls and they grew hair, and I just would grab up my lady balls, grab them up in my hand, and I'm doing this. Because if you ain't got no lady balls, you're going to continue to be subjected and victimized by the energy. Yeah. And a lot of us don't know we need energy. We need lady balls, and it's an energy. You're never going to grow testicles, but you can grow some lady balls. And it's about clearing energy. I cleared the energy with prayer. I cleared the energy with a clear intention. I would rub crystals on my head and stand naked in the shower. Because I'm a spiritual technician, so any technology. But once the energy was gone, Liz, once the energy was gone, things just got so clear to me. I was like, oh, shit. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, boo. Oh, wow.
No, this is my IG. You can say whatever you want. Look, you just said you have hairy lady balls. I don't think anybody's going to clutch their pearls if you say shit at this point.
No. Yeah, I got big hairy lady balls, and they do not fit in a thong. Okay? You can't wear no thong when you got lady balls. They'll be hanging all crooked, and they can't walk right. No. I do not wear thongs.
Oh my God.
Because I have to protect my lady balls. And so it's the energy of those things. So for us as women, because we're our heart space. And once our heart space gets polluted, that's when we are constantly subjected to those pathological beliefs and those pathological stories and stuff. And the other thing that it's hard. It is hard to break a family pathology, particularly when you have family alive. What happened for me, the other thing was everybody was dead. So I wasn't, I didn't really have anybody whispering in my everybody. I'm the last one standing. Mother gone, father gone, grandparents, brother, sister. I'm the last one standing. So my balls could be a little big. But,
That's
when
true,
you have,
but we know that the dead can also control our lives. That people don't have to be alive to tyrannize.
no, they don't. But you
Yeah.
know what? If you do things, and I learned this as a Native American, as a Yoruba, as an African person, I do ancestral elevation all the time. Whether it's light a candle, whether it's pray for their souls, call them into the light, lift them into a whole nother. You have to do those things. And it's unfortunate, and I love you, but it's unfortunate, but it's the European, it's y'all white folks that don't do ancestral veneration. Black people do it.
Iyanla, that's the least of the problems with us white folks. If that's the only unfortunate thing about what white European white folks do, that's.
But
it.
no,
Yeah,
but the
you're
thing
right.
is, they were so busy demeaning and demoralizing the culture of people of color that the things that are valuable to them that they could have used, they didn't. So we got to lift up the energy. And that's your personal work. That's your self-care work. That's your breath work. That's your meditation. That's your prayer. Right now, I'm getting ready to teach people how to pray because folks, because they have such a dysfunctional relationship with God or goddess, they're praying. They don't even know who they're praying to. They don't even know. And then they feel guilty because they don't trust God. Or because they got upset with God, but they're praying anyway and then get mad when the prayers aren't answered. It's so dysfunctional.
And it's a lot of transaction. It's a lot of, that comes out of the European tradition too. If I give you this, you'll give me, you'll give me this.
That's right.
We know
Very
that's not
transactional.
how, we know that spirit doesn't operate that way. I had a wonderful moment in prayer recently where I said to the God of my understanding, if I'm really good, which is always a bad way to start a prayer. If I'm really good, and I keep my nose clean and I stay out of my bottom line behaviors and I abolish all my and I work on my spirit and I give in service and I will you reward me by bringing me again someday somebody to love as much as I loved Rhea? And I instantly felt the answer, and the answer came, I will promise you no such thing. It's not this is not how we operate, and instantly I just started laughing and I felt like, when God's telling you the truth that you're getting somewhere, right? Because this is not how we operate. This is not the gods of our fathers where it's like, if I sacrifice, this to you and come into your pleasure, you will reward me with the things that I want. And then we'll build some sort of transactional relationship. That's not spirit.
No.
And
what I had
it was a lapse in me in that moment to ask.
What I had to learn is who I'm praying to, I'm praying with. What I'm praying for, I am. Who I'm praying to, I'm praying with. Because we've been taught to pray to an external God.
Right.
No. God is internal. It's the soul became human. The soul is now human, has physical form. So who I'm praying to, I'm praying with, and what I'm praying for, I am. Because if I'm not it, I wouldn't even know how to ask for it. I wouldn't know what it is. So I with that understanding, I also end all prayers in this way. I ask because my word shall not return to me void. I allow, lean not on my own understanding and let God do it. God becomes. And so it is. I ask, I allow, God becomes, and so it is. Not so it may be, I might be, could be, should be. It is now. My job is to know that, to live that, to hold that, and to pay attention so that when it shows up, I'll recognize it.
Oh, Iyanla, I love you. Let's go back to racism. I want to talk about racism in the media, especially when you were coming up. I found it fascinating from a structural point of view, writer to writer, that right dead center. It's almost, I think it's on page 151, and it's right exactly in the middle of this book, almost on the exact page of the middle of this journey. And by the way, if you're just joining us, we are discussing Peace from Broken Pieces with the great, luminous gift of God, who is Iyanla Vanzant. You talk about the television deal that you got with Buena Vista Productions, and particularly the toxic relationship with a white male producer named Bob Geddes. Bill, sorry. No offense to the Bobs of the world, named Bill Geddes. And it's almost physically painful for me to read the stories that you tell of the ways you were being compressed and shaped and reformatted to appeal to what Bill Geddes thought that you were, and what Bill Geddes thought that you should be, and what Bill Geddes thought your audience should be. Even to the point that he was hiring white actors to sit in your audience so that it would look more diverse, and he was controlling the clothes that women were wearing in your audience. If they were wearing bright African clothes, he didn't want that because it looked too black. You know, there was, and you were trying so hard. I mean, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Allegedly, here you're supposed to be grateful for the fact that you've got this television show, but it was the sense I had was that your soul was appalled. And that it was an affront to your spirit, what was happening in those rooms. And you write that it was a middle passage moment of your life.
Oh, yeah.
When the day came, and it's right in the middle of the book. It's like the middle of this journey where you said, and it's so simple, and this is the thing about when you stand in your truth, it sometimes gets very simple. The sentences get very short. You said, I will not work with Bill Geddes. I will not work with Bill. And you just went and told everybody in production that I won't work with him. And you were pushed, and you were cajoled, and you were gaslighted, and you were all sorts of things. And in the end, you were dismissed. You were dismissed. He wasn't, you were, from your show. And yet you were the one who left. You said you felt like that was the turning point in your life where you became yourself. Can you talk about that, what that took to become in that moment, what you said, the wise warrior woman who was actually ready for anything in life at that moment? I wanted that story to go differently. I wanted him to be fired, not you. I wanted a whole new team of women of color to come in and produce this show for you according to, you know,
women.
Or just women. Yeah. But tell me about that, standing in your truth against that person who you said had come, and you realized you'd recreated this toxic relationship where he represented every abusive man in history and in the history of your family, and the staff who you were trying to protect represented every neglected and abused woman in history and in the history of the program. So anyway, the middle passage moment, tell people who might not know what that means, what that term even means and what that means to you.
Well, in the middle passage is the ocean journey that the Africans took when they were captured in their land and brought to the Americas. And they were laying in the bottom of a ship, chained. Many who did not speak the language of the person laying next to them. They may have been Igbo or Hausa or Yoruba or Akan, and they couldn't even, the only thing they shared in common was the color of their skin. And in that middle passage, you know, the screaming and the crying for survival. Once a day when they took the slaves out for once a week or however often it was. I wasn't there consciously, so I don't remember. Many jumped overboard rather than be enslaved, rather than be raped, rather than be taken from their homeland. They actually thought they could swim back home. And in that middle passage also, they learned how to eat off one another's face. They learned how to share the slop that was given to them. They learned how to communicate. They learned how to stay together so that as we roll and as we move, our movements support one another as opposed to disrupt one another. So in that middle passage moment for me, I had to learn how to move. I had to learn how to survive. And it was more important for me to be Iyanla than it was for me to be on television. It was more important for me to learn that God is my source and my supply. And this $1 million check is nice, but selling my soul to the white man again is not that. My grandmother did that. My grandmother was 9 when she was raped by the sharecropper's son. And when she ran home from the field to tell her father that the sharecropper's son, she was 9, he was 17, had raped her, my grandfather beat her because she had gone beyond the fence. But as a young Black and Native girl, when the white sharecropper's son says, "Come here," you go. So she went, and he took her and he raped her. And she went home, her father beat her because he couldn't protect her. And he made it her fault. Had you not gone there? And he would really beat her because he was angry that his manhood had been challenged. But he couldn't say anything because he had 11 children and his wife was dead. That was a middle passage moment for him. So a middle passage moment is when you choose to do what is required to survive, not just physically, but at the depth of your being. And so that day when I said, I will not work with Bill Getty, it was for my grandmother who washed floors and cooked for rich white people to raise me and my brother. It was for her mother, a Native American born, a Tishlaki, Cherokee woman born on the reservation in South Carolina, who only stepped off the reservation when her husband took her off. It was for her mother. It was for my grandmothers, because when we heal and grow, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the generations past and the generations to come. I would not tell my daughters or my granddaughters to bow down and placate to a white man who wants you, or anybody who wants you to be something different than what's true in your heart for me. That's the middle passage. When you either choose you're going to lay in those chains and survive, believing, holding, hoping that something better is going to be when you get where you're going, or you're going to jump ship and try to swim home. I was not jumping ship. I was going to survive. And I was going to define and determine how I was going to survive and who I was going to be on the other side.
You and I spoke years ago about the discrepancy between the way that you were published and the way that Deepak and Marianne Williamson at the time, who were your peers and in many ways who you had surpassed. You had written and sold at the time that you were all coming up. At the same time, you had written and sold more books than them. You had bigger audiences than they did. And yet you were not invited on Good Morning America. You were not invited on the Today Show. You were not referenced in, I remember you saying, I'm not referenced in their books. No. I reference them. I read them, but they don't read me.
That's right.
There's a discrepancy of, by the way, their loss. But there's a discrepancy even at every level of media that is still true today, which is why I have this book club, because of the really shocking discrepancy about just how differently Black female authors are treated than how I'm treated. But I wonder where you see it today versus 30 years ago, and how you processed the events of last year. I know that's a very broad question. Last year, there was a lot. There was a lot in America's long 500-year racial history that happened in the last year. But if you could lead into that. But just how you dealt with, you said at one point, this is another thing, you said you tried not to compare yourself to where Deepak and Marianne Williamson were, because you said comparison is a form of violence, but systemic racism is also a form of violence. Denying people a spotlight that they have earned is a form of violence as well. So how did you process that then, and how do you process it now?
Well, the first thing I had to process is, why do I need the spotlight? I'm doing the work. It's reaching who it's reaching. God is my source and my supply. Why did I need the spotlight? Because seeking the spotlight was also a way of me seeking, validation from an external force.
Right.
So that was the first thing. Let me stop seeking the spotlight. And the other thing, this is just quiet. I won't say this out loud. I'll say it to you because you're my friend.
And my 2,500 friends who are here with us.
The people at Marianne and Deepak is reaching, they need more help than Black folks sometimes.
Wow. 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 In terms of spiritual bankruptcy, I would tend to agree. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that has happened over the years, particularly from 30 years ago, there are many more Black editors and Black imprints that embrace Black authors and put things out. And then just as always, at some point, probably around the mid 90s, 2000s, it became fashionable to promote Black authors. So in that moment, if you had written a book on some toilet paper and wrapped it up in a paper towel, they would publish it, And then along came Amazon and the Kindle, and that went out the window, And so, it has changed. It's still very different. And like I said, I don't hold Marianne knows me. Marianne has my phone number in her phone. But if you look in the back of Marianne's books, I'm never referenced. You look in the back of Deepak's books, I'm never referenced. And I introduced some people to Marianne, to Sonia Coquette, to, everybody knew who you were. But, because for me, the work is the work is the work. I don't care who wrote it. If this is going to help you as a technician, I use whatever brand, the tool I need. So I don't need the validation, and it's not my purpose. My purpose is not to be validated by publishers or external things. It's for me to be obedient to God and do what I'm told to do. Fast forward into Miss Corona. I say Miss Corona because she set this place afire.
Yeah, she did.
Miss Corona is the only, and this is when I knew, while it had devastating physical effects, I knew it was a spiritual exercise, because the coronavirus is the only thing I know of in history that shut the churches down. Nothing.
The churches. Wow. I haven't heard anybody make that point. Wow.
No snowstorm, nothing.
Wow.
There was a little panic around the turn of the century, but Corona shut the doors of the church, Liz.
Wow.
Okay,
I didn't even think of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, this don't have nothing to do with people dying in the hospital and PPE. Okay. So then, if you want to know the purpose of the thing, ask the maker of the thing. And so that's what I did. I went into deep prayer and meditation. And, this was about us realizing our fears. This was about us really investigating and looking at our attachment, our relationships.
Yeah. This
was about Mother Nature, the feminine energy coming alive and saying, y'all got to do this different. You have to do this different. Now, a lot of people lost their physical life during the coronavirus. And the human tendency is to think that's wrong, that's bad. But if you go back to the brunch, at that brunch, when your purpose is whispered in your ear, so is your expiration date. Because every contract has an expiration date. And that expiration date isn't made up in the middle of the contract. The expiration date is made at the beginning of the contract. So while it looked like Corona took all of these people out, that was their expiration date. And whether they had Corona or cancer or diabetes or got shot or stabbed or whatever, it simply means on your expiration date, you will exhale and not inhale. I just found it so interesting that it was lungs and breathing that was challenged. You exhale, you don't inhale. I don't care how you get there. You can be shot or stabbed. It could be cancer, diabetes. It could be, suicide. You exhale and you don't inhale on your expiration date. period. That's it. But you know, human beings, oh, it's horrible because we love to be victims. We love to be victims. And we never think about how there's a grander mind and a grander scheme of things. And so it was difficult. But all of the people who left here and sacrificed so that those of us who are here would learn. Unfortunately, we ain't learned much because we acting a pure D fool.
we also love not learning.
Right. You know, like somebody the other day was going off about their wearing a mask and, you know, screaming and hollering, you can't tell me what to do with my body. And I said, beloved, we pumping up our butts, our boobs, our lips. We wear wigs and makeup, false fingernails. We walk around in a mask all the damn time. Why are we so upset that now we got to have on a little paper thing on our face? We don't speak the truth. We mask our words. We don't say what we mean. It's a mask. And now because the physical thing of covering our mouth, we act like this is this is how we live. And the universe is just showing us how we live. Why are we so upset? Because we love the illusion. We love the big lies that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And so for me, and you know, this is life according to Iyanla, pay me no absolute mind.
Oh no, we pay you all the mind, Iyanla.
It's, you know, the universe is showing us who we are. We think it's one white man trying to get in the White House. No, that's you. You lie, you bully, you do it. You do it to yourself, you do it to others, you do it to your kids, you do it to your partner. You insist on having your way, even when your way is destructive and dysfunctional. You bribe people into doing your dirty work. You bully them into keeping you up in your lies. He's showing us who we are, and we're looking at him. Look at you. I got that the day he was elected. The day this person came into office, I said, ooh, how do I do that? Look at me. I can't worry about us. How I do that. How do I do what he does? And I could see it. Some of which I was still doing, some of which I had healed, some of which I wasn't even aware I was doing. So I don't he don't upset me at all. I just look and I say, okay, let me clean that up in me, because we are so powerful. If we clean it up individually, which we refuse to do because we're so busy looking for the external validation, comparing ourselves, aligning with party lines. And that's what my family did to me. They had a party line. Don't tell her mother is dead. Just let her think that's a party line, and it's a lie. And so if we would clean it up within ourselves, do you know we would blow this thing right out? It couldn't exist. It can't exist when you have the vibration so high, when you have the, you know, and we're punks. We allow things to go on because we think we're still children, helpless. We can't speak out. We don't have lady balls, and some of the men ain't got no balls. Come out your thong, grab your balls up, and say, this is unacceptable. Stop it. Stop it. Republican, Democrat, black, white, no. But you know when I knew we were going straight to hell? Because this is hell right here, watching what's going on. When mothers, and I'm saying mothers, when we didn't shut this country down, when they killed up our babies in Parkland or Collingwood or wherever the hell it was, when we allowed ourselves to be okay, we're killing our babies in the school. We were supposed to shut this bitch down. Don't spend a dime. Don't go to an office until you do something about these damn guns on the street. Now the babies got the guns and they shooting us. Come on, somebody. Ooh, let me breathe. Let me yawn.
Yawn. Make contact.
Let me yawn.
Iyanla, my friend and teacher Byron Katie says there's a reason we hate tyrants so much. It's because they remind us too much of ourselves.
That's right.
That's
right. Women, it's going to be women. Let me tell you a quick story. This is an African fable. There was a king who inherited the throne. He didn't earn it, he inherited it. Because his father was king, his father died, he became the king. And he was a piece of work, okay? Because he had been spoiled all his life. You know, kings aren't just born and they, oh Lord, let me make sure I okay, I can plug my phone in. Otherwise, y'all will be there and I'll be gone. So wait, let me get my cord. Let me make sure I'm plugged in here.
That's all right. We'll sit here and wait for the king to become a tyrant.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me find the cord. Help me, Lord. Where's the cord? There is a cord among
Everybody, we're talking with Iyanla Vanzant, obviously. Who else? The author of Peace from Broken Pieces, a memoir of grief, resilience, survival, spirit.
Right. I'm running to get a cord. Hold on.
Okay, she's running to get a cord. We'll talk among ourselves. I want to say this about this book, everybody. I want to read you another line from the book that I loved. Page 55 of Peace from Broken Pieces by Iyanla Vanzant. You cannot pay the debts that come along with believing that you are unworthy. Unworthiness always puts you in debt to anyone and everyone who shows you the slightest degree of attention or love or energy. Eventually, in this form of a bankrupt relationship, your benefactors will demand or expect more than you are able or willing to give. This is the precise moment where they would choose to call in the loan.
Thank God for a cord in the car and a car in the garage.
And I was just giving a public reading of your book, Iyanla.
Okay,
I'm actually going to do the audiobook.
Wait a minute. Come on.
Take your time as you were. And when you come back, I want to touch back in about Jamia.
All right, I got to tell you
about
the
forgiveness.
king.
Oh yeah, the king.
Okay.
Go on with the king.
I just want to, okay. Woo. All right. That was
She's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank God for now where are my glasses? Okay. I had to turn the light off, so I may look a little darker, but I'm still black. So anywho.
You're perfect. Radiant and gorgeous, as always.
He inherited the throne. He didn't earn it. And he was a piece of work. Oh, he just run amok. Broke a lot of the traditions, implemented a lot of ways that didn't serve the people. And the universe and the earth rebelled. The crops started dying. The animals stopped reproducing and they were dying off. The water dried up in the streams. Because the universe, Mother Nature, does respond to our state of consciousness and being. Well, this went on for a few years. And the crops wouldn't grow. The animals were dying off. The people were suffering. And he was just oblivious. And the people were saying, you need to stop doing this. You have violated the ancestors. You violated the earth. He couldn't hear of any of it. And eventually the women got tired of their children dying. And all of the women one day, old, young, they all walked to the castle where he lived and early in the morning, and they began to pray. And the women prayed, and the women prayed. And then the women danced, and the women danced. And the women danced, and when he threw his doors open to shoo them away, the women bared their breast and turned their backs. He was gone in 24 hours. We don't know how powerful we are as women. And we begin to exercise and not do it the way they do it. We can't do it the way they do it.
Yeah.
Do you know, and anybody who's in a partnership, whether man or woman or whatever, what happens when you get real quiet with your partner? When you just don't say nothing? Just walk around, don't say a word. What do they say? What's the matter?
What's the matter?
What's going on? You mad? What would happen if women just pull themselves out for a day with a very clear ask, what would happen? Oh no, I got to pay my rent. I can't go. I'll lose my job. Blah, blah. You're losing your life and your soul.
Mm.
Pull out. Every woman. But so many of us are so busy doing it the way men do it. We would never do that.
Mm. One of the things I loved most is the conversation that you and Oprah had live in a moment of reconciliation. Talk about doing things the way men don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, two incredibly powerful women, two incredibly powerful Black women meeting in a public forum, almost like in, you know, within the village circle, to air their misunderstanding, to share their grievance. And I remember it at the time, and I remember thinking, this is an astonishing thing that I'm witnessing right now, because no man would ever do this, would ever. And I remember seeing, of course, there's a lot of, like, everyone had an opinion about it because everybody has opinions. And there were people who felt like it was, you know, an airing of dirty laundry. They hate to see that happening, or they felt that you had been forced to come and crawl to her to apologize. No, this was two women sitting together, and you said, there's nothing that can't be healed through open conversation.
That's right.
And you brought, with a lot of humility, you said, look, I didn't understand how this world worked. This is all in reference to, she was possibly offering you a TV show, but maybe later, and then somebody else came and there was misunderstanding and you went with them. And I loved watching two women in public do their learning in public. That's what I want to thank you for, Iyanla, is that you, like so many people who I consider to be my teachers, are somebody who does her learning in public.
I know, it's very painful.
But it's a gift, you know, it's a gift, because if your learning then teaches me and helps me, you know, and you've been an example of, I do my learning in public too, you know, you choose, you get to curate when you do it, how you do it, what you release into the world. But that's the vulnerability. And I remember there was a criticism I saw at the time where it said, you know, these two women are talking about a business deal. They shouldn't be talking about a business deal in this emotional way. I was like, they're women. Everything women
But
do.
it wasn't a business deal.
That's
not what broke us down.
It was an emotional misunderstanding.
It wasn't business. It
Yeah.
was about communication. It was about trust. It was about a lack of awareness, understanding, and compassion on both of our parts.
Yeah.
And I was very clear. You know, the first thing that I said to her when I walked onto that stage, I wasn't groveling. And if you knew what led up to that day, it would be another thing. But I said to her, I need to ask for your forgiveness. Because her world was one thing, my world was another. She didn't understand my world, I didn't understand her world. We were both operating in a way that didn't have compassion for the other's experience. And so she said, you are forgiving and there's nothing to forgive. And once that happened, then we had the conversation, which was not the conversation we were supposed to have. The conversation we were supposed to have was about that book.
It was every bit the conversation you were supposed to have, because what you modeled in that, and I want to take a moment to, and here I am crying again, start the conversation crying and the conversation. I want to thank you for the work that you've put into the world on forgiveness. And that work, your work on forgiveness, the book that you published on forgiveness, the course that you offered on forgiveness, was a soul-changing experience for me. Nobody had ever taught me. I'd always wanted to forgive, but nobody had ever taught me how, that it's an art form, that it's a spiritual technology. And you sort of, you don't know that you did this for me, but you held my hand through some very painful things that I needed to forgive. And I saw your mastery of forgiveness again in this book, which we're discussing, Peace from Broken Pieces by Iyanla Vanzant. The prayer of forgiveness that you offer at the end of this book to God and to Jamia, to forgive you for the failings, I can't even say the words because it's so painful, what you perceive to be your failings as a mother, the courage that you took to reveal in this book the anger that your daughter felt to you about the ways that she felt that you had not shown up for her, the arguments that you got into at the end of her life over control. I had this with Rhea too when she was dying. Who's in control of this person's body as they're dying? The control that I tried to take over this very powerful being because I was scared and I wanted to micromanage her death. And the forgiveness that I have asked to her spirit for that, and to her family, for the ways that I muscled my way in and was like, it's going to be my way because of my own terror. You continually show me what it looks like to do your best, to hurt people accidentally, to fail, and to say, I'm come to ask for your forgiveness. And it is a beautiful, graceful, elegant, and powerful thing to witness. And so just between the two of us, I just want to say thank you for that.
Okay, so we won't let the other 2,400 people know.
No, don't tell them, because I don't want them to know about forgiveness. This is just my thing.
And the thing that, you know, because again, as a technician, I have to break it down into the micro pieces. It's not just forgive the behavior. It's to forgive the thought, to forgive the belief, to forgive the feeling, and to forgive yourself first. And that's where people go awry. They think they got to forgive everybody else. You got to forgive you first. Your thought, your belief, your judgment, your feeling. And then as you do that, the fog lifts. And then you can go and say, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Yeah.
From a place of a whole spirit, not a broken, begging. And I love that you also say you broke down for me what forgiveness is and what it isn't. And that it is not condoning bad behavior.
Yes.
It is a liberation from an energy force that is destroying your heart. And that is, anyway, those of you, read Iyanla's book on forgiveness, take her workshop on forgiveness. And I was going to say, I want to talk to you all day, but that's not true. I actually want to talk to you all day, every day. But I do know that I have to let you get back to your life. But I want to say this too, which is that your brother and mine, Rob Bell, we all met on the Oprah tour together. We have a little expression that we've coined, which is who a person is in the green room is who they are.
Yes.
Because I've been around a lot of spiritual teachers and a lot of spiritual masters, and some of them I'm sorry I ever met, because who they are in the green room, how somebody talks to their assistant is who they actually are in real life. If you are a different person behind the scenes than you are in front of the scenes, then you're not somebody who has anything to teach me. I know that for a fact. And I had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with you, hanging out in your green room with your family. And I just want to say thank you for being somebody who, this is another thing, Robin, I always say, thank you for smoking what you're selling. Thank you for being who you are authentically and with integrity in every situation. I've never seen you be anything but exactly who we all know you to be in public, and I appreciate that, and I love that, because that's why your teaching works. Because if you're not smoking what you're selling, you're not doing anybody any good.
Well, you asked me one of the principles, and it's authenticity. Just to be who I am, because as a Black Native American raised among Latins, who I was not okay. Can you imagine my grandmother passed for Black rather than to be a Native American in the 20s, 30s, 40s. It was easier for her to pass for Black. That's a problem. Okay. So, but I want you, Liz, turn the comments on, because I know people are itching to say things.
Yeah,
and they want
let's
me to
turn
see
the
it.
comments on. Okay, let's do it. Let's get some comments.
And so I just really want to say, particularly to us as women, this is such a powerful time we're in. This is such a powerful time we are in, and it is our time. The divine feminine is. Be willing to look at yourself, every aspect of yourself, and to ask yourself continually, day on, day off, is this my higher self? Am I being my highest authentic self? What am I being? Not what am I doing, but who am I being? And can I be more loving, more peaceful, more giving? Can I be more powerful in myself? This is our time, Liz. I know you know that. I know that's why you're doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to look at your broken places, ladies, my sister women. Don't be afraid to look at your bad behaviors. Don't be afraid to acknowledge your hurts and your pains. Your pains need a witness. Women, gather. Gather in your kitchen once a week. Gather in your homes once a week and just come together and share with one another where your brokenness is. And then pray together and dance together and yawn and stretch and soothe together, because we have to heal in order for this energy to change. Don't tolerate, accommodate, accept anything less than what honors the divine being that you are. That's what time it is. That is what Corona is telling us. That is what she came to show us. Stop accepting the lies and the less thans. It's our time, Liz. It's our time. It's my time. And I'm not going to see it because I'm old. I haven't aged, but I'm old. You know, I won't see my granddaughter stand in the place of power. And can I remind you, ladies, I know I'm talking a lot, but it's just, I'm telling you what spirit is given. There are places that we join as women, that we embrace as women, that we stand as women, that men will never stand. You see, because a woman knows what it means for another woman to lose her breast. A woman knows what it means for another woman to have a broken heart. A woman knows what it means for another woman when her child goes astray. So when a woman is in pain, we don't look at color, political party, economic resources. Women stand with and for each other in pain and growing. And it's when we start succeeding that we take on the ways of the world. Let us stop doing it the way they do it. Let us stop being men in skirts. Let us take our lady balls out of the thongs, put on some big white bloomers, and let's be women. Let's be feminine. Let's live in our hearts. Let us honor each other the way women do it. Our medicine is different. Pray, dance, sing, embrace other women. I love this woman. I haven't seen her since Jesus was a pup in Chicago, but we text, we email, we stay in touch, right? So I don't want nothing from her but her good. She doesn't want anything from me but my good. She exposes me to her community. I expose her to mine. You understand? This is how we do it. And if you don't know how women do it, then ask. We do this. We don't do it like they do it. So let's do it the way we do it. All right, I'll shut up now.
Let's do it the way we do it. You know what? The last thing I had in my, first of all, I want to thank you because you gave me an expression that I use constantly, which is, for a long time, I say, since God left Chicago. I have said that. I learned that from you. I haven't seen you since God left Chicago. I say that so often. People are always like, wait, when did God leave? I don't know.
Who knows?
I adore you. Everybody, get yourself a copy of Peace from Broken Pieces. Get yourself a copy of Iyanla's forgiveness book. And tell us before you go, what do you have on offer? You always have some great workshop or gift or something that you're teaching. What have you got that people can enjoy right now?
Well, you know, because this is what time it is, starting on Sunday, the 13th of June. I'm doing a 7-day prayer challenge. Every morning at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be walking people through the process, the technology, the science of affirmative prayer, so that we can begin to pray differently, building a different relationship with the God of our understanding and praying in an affirmative manner. And so you can go to my Facebook page or Hay House. Hay House is sponsoring it. But I'm going to be online with you every morning at 7 o'clock, particularly as women. We got to stop doing these begging, pleading, wonder if God hears me prayers. We got to pray from our lady balls.
Iyanla, you are literally a high priestess, and you are also in my heart a high priestess. I love you so very much. Everybody go learn how to pray from the one who does it better than anybody and who leads us all. I love you. Thank you so much for coming on. Read her books. Read her books. She's not just a great speaker. She's a brilliant writer. And I love that you came on the Onward Book Club. I can't believe that I haven't
With
seen
no
you as long as
makeup
I've
on.
seen you. Let's do it the way we do it, everybody. That's got to be
Yes.
the new. That's got to be the
That's
new
the new
message.
thing. Do it the way we do it. You know, not the way they taught us to.
And
y'all keep.
continue to not age, Iyanla. Just you know,
Okay.
I
I'm
think
getting
you may be
old, but
around
I
for
ain't
the
aging.
miracle.
I
I
love
love
you,
you.
everybody.
We love you
Mwah,
all.
mwah. Thank you
Thank
for
you
my
so much, everybody. Bye.
bye. Now I don't